Welcome in for a special edition Inside Carolina podcast. I'm Joey Powell, and the title sponsor for today's show is Johnny T-Shirt, a Franklin Street tradition for 40 years, and your home online and in person. To get the best in Tar Heel gear, be sure to visit them at johnnytshirt.com. We're also sponsored by Congruity. If you own a small or mid-sized business, this North Carolina-based company excels at taking care of all of our payroll and HR needs so your business can grow. Go to congruityhr.com/Tar Heels. All right. Well, when we have big legal issues surrounding team sports, specifically the North Carolina Tar Heels, we go to the top lawyer in the state of North Carolina. And I'm joined today by Attorney General Josh Stein. Attorney General Stein, first things first, thanks for the time. I want to ask you, how did you come to hear about the Tez Walker case?
Well, like anyone else, I read the sports pages and I care a lot about college sports. And I thought, well, first of all, I was really surprised at the South Carolina game when he was pulled at the last minute by the NCAA. And then I was sure when the NCAA had the opportunity to revisit that decision that it would do the right thing. I mean, after all, this is a kid who had only played at one other school before, Kent State. And when he came to North Carolina, he came in solid academic standing. He had a 3.7 GPA at Kent State, and he had family and mental health issues that made him want to come back home. And so this is such a no-brainer. And then when they didn't do it, I was as frustrated as anyone else in terms of this nameless, faceless bureaucracy denying a kid what should be his right, which is to play college football. And so we started looking into the legal issues, and there are real issues in terms of how the NCAA has with this transfer rule. And so we wrote them a letter expressing our concerns about their unfair treatment of Tez. We urged them to reconsider, and I'm sure there were other factors that went into the NCAA's decision. I know that Tez had his own lawyers, and they worked really hard to make the best case for him that they could. But whatever the cause is, I'm just happy for the kid. You know, I saw the video of him celebrating with Coach Brown, and
how great is that?
It's what should happen. You know, I've got a college sophomore. I have a kid who's a college sophomore, and I've got one who just graduated college. And so I know what it's like for kids in college. They're trying to make their own way. They're trying to figure out what their path is. They're trying to figure out who they are. And this kid, Tez, he should be able to play, and I'm so happy that he can.
So you mentioned Tez's attorneys. What other parties might have been involved with this whole situation from a legal perspective?
Well, the university, through its board of trustees, I know the board of trustees has been really working hard on this issue as well. They had their own counsel. I represent the state and I represent the university, but in this instance, they had outside counsel. I was involved in my capacity of representing the state of North Carolina and our antitrust laws. And then Tez had his lawyers, and they were great lawyers who did a tremendous job making the case for Tez.
So you mentioned the term antitrust, and I know that's a big buzzword, especially today in light of the news, but can you help us understand what antitrust means with regard to a case like this in the NCAA?
Yeah, basically, it's illegal for any entity to restrain trade in an anti-competitive manner, meaning that you make it harder for somebody to do what they want to do. You have to have a pro-competitive reason for doing that to restrain trade. And basically, they're saying to Tez, you can't do what you do, which is play college football. And there isn't a good pro-competitive reason. One plausible reason that the NCAA may use to justify its rule is that it helps kids who transfer multiple times get acclimated to a new environment academically and socially. But that has no meaning when you have a kid like Tez who is got over 3.0 GPA. It just doesn't make any sense. And so it's an unfair rule, and it was unfairly applied to Tez Walker.
Now, something I think folks may be aware of or may not be aware of, but you mentioned it in your press release today from your office. You wrote a letter to the NCAA on Tez's behalf. What was your goal when you wrote that letter?
To urge them to reconsider the issue and to answer these questions about the validity of the rule in its entirety. Mainly, we wanted to help this young man get on the field because that's what his dream is to play college football at UNC and then succeed and go on professionally. And that's what we want all kids to do, go to college and then go pursue their life's dreams. And so the fact that they were mistreating him, we made the case on how that was unfair. And we demanded to get their thoughts on how do they justify this rule in any way.
We're talking with North Carolina Attorney General Josh Stein in light of the recent change in ruling by the NCAA regarding UNC wide receiver Tez Walker. Josh, despite what the NCAA release said, which I think is just a patent petty attempt at bullscat, in your opinion, what do you think changed from their end after kind of some legal pressures started happening? What can you see may have changed?
I think that one, they realized that they weren't going to get a free pass by exercising their will however they wanted, that they were going to be held accountable for the decision they made. And I can't underscore what a good job Tez's lawyers did in making the case for Tez. And so I think that NCAA didn't want to lose. And if they thought that they could win, they wouldn't have granted this waiver.
Well, one more question for you, Attorney General Josh Stein, joining us here on a special Inside Carolina podcast, and we appreciate your time, AG. You're a legend in Chapel Hill as far as soccer goes. So I want to ask you, you've got some sports knowledge. Do you want to give me any predictions for the Tar Heels the rest of the season for the UNC football team now that Tez Walker will officially be playing?
Well, I never would have thought I'd have to put Duke as one of the toughest games remaining on the schedule, but it looks like that they're playing really high-level football. State always plays Carolina crazy good. I think the Heels are going to end up 9-2. I think they've got a lot going for them, but there's enough imperfections along the way that I don't think they'll be unblemished.
I think most rational Heels fans will probably agree with that. I certainly appreciate that you've been willing to kind of go out on a limb here. Last thing I'll ask you, and we'll let you go, about this Tez Walker case. You mentioned seeing the video of he and Mac Brown and Lonnie Galloway after he found out he was eligible. Have you ever had something like this in your tenure? You've won a lot of big cases in your tenure as Attorney General. Have you ever had any situations where you get to finally see the happiness moment, or the justice be done for folks like Tez? Have you had a chance to see a lot of that in your career?
I've been blessed, and the answer to that is yes. We've worked hard to vindicate people's rights. I mean, it might have been somebody whose property was taken over by a predatory lender, or a woman who was sexually assaulted and finally gets to see her rapist go behind bars. One of the reasons I do the job of Attorney General is because we fight for justice for people and try to do right by people, and it doesn't matter who's on the other side. And to be able to do this and see folks have that better future, that's an immense reward for which I'm very grateful.
Well, I'm sure it helps get you out of bed in the morning. And I know Tar Heel fans and everybody listening and watching this will probably agree with me that they appreciate your involvement in this case, as well as Governor Roy Cooper, who sent a letter to the president of the NCAA some time back. But the end of the story, it's turned out to be a good one for Tar Heel fans and for Tez Walker, as he has been granted eligibility immediately by the NCAA, in part to his lawyers, the UNC's lawyers, but also to the gentleman that spoke with us today, Attorney General of North Carolina, Josh Stein. Josh, we appreciate it. Hope to talk to you sometime very soon. And thanks for making time with us on a busy day.
Very great to talk to you.
All right. Take care.